So what can an unhappy marriage lead to? Let's go ahead and unpack that in today's episode. Stay tuned.
Welcome to the Husband's Coach's Corner, the podcast that teaches husbands how to love their wife every day and become better men in the process. I'm your host, Chris Scott, aka The Husband Coach.
Welcome back to another episode of the Husband Coach's Corner. Today we are going to be looking at what an unhappy marriage can lead to. Now, before we go too deep into this, quick notes for you. First, if you haven't already, in the show notes or description box below, make sure you sign up for your free wife journal completely for free. Check that out, link in the description or the show notes. Second, visit the website marriagedrills.com. This is the home of the Husband Coach, and this is where I'm going to be posting a lot of stuff, so check that out. And then last but not least, if you need to contact me via email, you can contact me at chris@marriagedrills.com or husbandcoach2020@gmail.com. Both of these email addresses are inside of the description box or show notes. So check that out, and you can send me a message if you want to set up a one-on-one session or if you just have comments or questions. So let's go ahead and get into today's episode of what can an unhappy marriage actually lead to. Now, I'll be honest with you. I was reading an article and it reminded me of a story. So here comes a quick story for you. A few years ago, I was coaching a husband who, at the point when he met me, started unloading a lot of his unhappy marital things. Now, spoiler alert, he ends up getting a divorce. He and his wife end up divorcing. So this is really a case study to break down what happened. And at the point that he came to talk to me, and we were, kind of meeting together, he was already borderline towards the divorce. And there's some key indicators that led to where they were in the marriage. So the story starts out, and you guys can probably relate. So if this hits home, don't get overly emotional. Just say, hey, you know what? Maybe I need to do something about this. All right. So this individual, he was dealing with alcohol issues. All right. He was unhappy with things in his marriage. He didn't know what. So he turned to alcohol based off of some guidance that he got from an acquaintance. All right. This isn't a friend. This isn't someone that he knew. This is just someone that he happened to run into. He unloaded his problems on him. And this individual told him, well, I get through my marriage by drinking every night. Well, alcohol has effects on people differently, right? I think most of us who are listening to this will understand that. The issue here was alcohol became an addiction for this individual, all right? And because alcohol got involved, it started to lead to other issues in the marriage beyond just him being unhappy, all right? When he would drink, he would essentially shut himself out from his wife. Now, they didn't have any kids, so there weren't any challenges there. It was just him and his wife, and he ended up getting a DUI. Now, he got a DUI. Again, he was an alcoholic, and that's probably a nice way of putting it. He really enjoyed drinking, all right? His wife came to him and addressed his alcoholism, and he got upset, picked up the keys, got in his car, and he drove away. Now, thankfully, at the time that he was getting onto whatever highway he was getting on, there was a state trooper or police officer, whatever, law enforcement agent that was able to pull him over and get him off the road so he didn't hurt himself and other people. So, in that regard, great. But this led to a downward spiral in the marriage, because now he is in a circumstance where he said, the reason I'm in the DUI predicament is because my wife is making me unhappy, which is what led me to drinking, which is what led me. And when she confronted me about my drinking, it led me to getting into the car and driving. And now I'm getting this DUI and causing all these issues. Right. So when he was being treated for his alcoholism based off of the DUI, he was directed to see a counselor. And when he was talking to the counselor, he didn't want to open up or share. Now, this is when the counselor said, hey, if you don't want to talk to me, you should find someone that you can trust and that you can talk to and open up with. Well, the counselor, didn't know me, but told him like, hey, go find someone. And so this individual sought out someone who was a coach of, whatever. And that's when he ran into me. All right. So that's how we met. And so we sat down, we started talking, had a coffee, and he just unloaded his entire story. And every single step of the way, he kept saying, this is why I'm unhappy. And this is why my marriage is failing. And I'm tired of her. And, just all these things. He was casting every single piece of blame onto his wife. All right. The reason he got the DUI, the reason he started drinking, all of these things, it wasn't his fault. It was his wife's fault. All right. So I already told you they ended up getting a divorce. And when the divorce happened, he realized that not everything was his wife's fault, because he was still facing a lot of the issues that he was having in his marriage as a single man. And I remember one of our sessions after the divorce, we were talking and he was just telling me, he's like, Chris, it's crazy. I thought my issues were my wife, but the issues were actually me. And in that moment, it clicked for him that I wasn't unhappy because of something my wife was doing. I was unhappy because of stuff that I wasn't doing. All right. So we're going to go ahead and study this a little bit. So hopefully the listeners of this podcast and viewers of this YouTube channel don't run into this issue. All right. So how do we fix this, or what do we learn from this? All right. One, he got advice from someone that he barely knew. I can't begin to explain why this is a problem. Don't get advice from people that you barely know. And yes, that includes me, right? Don't get advice from me because you barely know me, right? What do I mean by this? What I mean is take the advice and sit with it for a little while. Figure out if it's good advice. All right. Now, I do believe I'm giving out good advice, but it may not be good for you. There's no one size fits all when it comes to relationships. There's some very general things that fit in relationships, but there's no one size fits all. Don't take advice from people that you barely know, unless it is sound and just advice, which is what I strive to bring to you here. But you have to do the due diligence to see if it actually works for your marriage. Okay. Number two, he never confronted the issue that led to him being unhappy. Instead, he ran from them. Now, this is something that we're really going to talk about, and how do you fix this? But if you are listening to this right now and you're like, I'm unhappy in my marriage, and you're resorting to other vices, alcohol, excessive workouts, or, watching pornography, watching TV, anything that just removes you from dealing with the issue, this is unhealthy. This is unhealthy in just your mental capacity, right? Because it shows that you don't have a level of resiliency. Instead, you'd rather just cope with it and allow that thing to be numb and go away. We have to work through our issues. Whatever makes us unhappy, whatever frustrates us, it's okay to be upset in the moment, but then we have to come back and say, okay, why did this upset me? and how do I move through this so I'm not upset about it again, or at least I'm less upset about it again in the future. All right. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but don't run from the thing. That's definitely a part of this. And then number 3, he blamed everyone else and pushed those closest to him away. In our final session, he was very, very resentful or remorseful, I should say, that he pushed his wife away, who genuinely loved him and cared for him and stayed with him even when he was a complete idiot. All right. When he was this complete fool, she stood by his side and she told him, like, hey, I love you. I'm here for you. And instead of embracing that, he embraced the bottle. Right. And she had no idea what he was unhappy about. And I'm not going to put the man's business out there because his stuff was more personal to him. But the moral of the story is, if you are unhappy about something, don't push the people that are closest to you away from you, because then you're going to be standing there alone and you're going to feel isolated. And that is the first step of mental defeat. All right. We are social people. Like human beings, we're social. We need other people. I don't care how independent you think you are. You need someone else to come alongside you. This is why, 1, you're probably listening to this podcast or watching this YouTube video. But 2, this is also why when you are in a group of your friends and you're having a good time, you're really enjoying it, right? And then if you try to do the same thing that you did with your friends, it's not this by yourself. It's not the same. We're social people. You have to have someone else to have your back, work with you. Don't push those closest to you away. Now, here's a quote that I want to share with you. Consistently successful people are responsible and they don't cast blame on others. Let that sink in for a second. Consistently, right? I'm talking about people day in and day out. Consistently successful people, all right? These are the ones that are always achieving, knocking it out of the park. And you're probably, like, when I say this, someone probably comes to mind, right? We're talking about those high performance achievers. Consistently successful people are responsible and they don't cast blame on others. This is so huge. You cannot be casting blame on other people, right? The key word in this is responsible. If you are irresponsible, you're going to cast blame because you want it to be someone else's fault, instead of saying, okay, where is my fault in this circumstance and how can I take care of that portion, right? It's easy to point out other people's flaws and issues and mistakes, and it's really, really easy. It's not hard, right? You could look at someone and be like, oh man, that's all messed up. But it's a little bit more difficult to be real with yourself. And I'm here to tell you that if you cast blame, you're irresponsible. All right. Now, this is not me saying that identifying ownership of certain issues, right? You can absolutely do that. But if you say, I'm this way because of you, well, you get to make your own choices. All right. Now, unless someone like hits you across your head with a baseball bat and you're like, I'm paralyzed because you hit me with a baseball bat, it's probably not that person's fault that something happened to you, right? Unless they directly caused it. But if you made a decision to do something, which then led to a decision, which again, in my story, or in the case study, the gentleman decided to get in the car after an argument after he was belligerently drunk or, had already had too much to drink. And he got the DUI. He blamed his wife for getting the DUI. He made the choice. Now, some of you listening, you're probably going to be like, well, no, she encouraged him or she upset him. And so that's just a natural reaction. That's not the way that things work in the real world. Okay. One, he was intoxicated, so his thinking capability, his cognitive ability was impaired, which is why alcoholism is an issue. If you are drinking so much that you can't think straight, you should probably get some help. All right. I'm not against people drinking alcohol. I personally don't. But if you are drinking so much that you can't make good decisions or you make bad decisions when you have alcohol, maybe that's not the most responsible thing for you to do. You see where I'm going with this? So I'm not trying to shame anyone who drinks, but I am going to be real with you and tell you that if you are making bad decisions when you drink, it's probably not the thing you should be doing, my friend. All right. But last time, consistently successful people are responsible and they don't cast blame on others. Don't cast your blame on other people. Now, what can I do or what can you do? Well, the first thing is you have to accept responsibility for the issues in your marriage. And I would even go one step further to say, accept responsibilities for the issues in your life that may not even be a part of your marriage, like your health. You can't blame your wife that you are not in shape, right? Don't blame your wife for that. You could say, oh, well, she wants me to be home because she doesn't trust me at the gym. So work out at the house. Oh, well, I don't have equipment. So get some non-equipment workout routines. Like, you have to start to find solutions to your problems instead of saying, woe is me. All right. Accept responsibilities for your issues. Now, the issues in your marriage, you have to accept responsibility for those. This isn't like some rocket science genius knowledge, right? This is just genuine, truthful knowledge that you have to apply to your life in order to see the results. Right? This is how you become one of those high-performing, successful individuals. But even more so, your marriage will benefit from it. So number one, accept responsibility for the issues in your marriage. And then one step further, accept the responsibilities for the issues in your life. Okay? Number two, seek advice from someone that will truly help you and take the time to follow up with you. Look, guys, this is critical. We need a counterpart. We need a buddy. We need someone to go with us along the journey, right? There's a saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, bring a friend. The reason that we need that friend is because we lose energy, right? Or we don't always see ourselves the way that everyone else sees ourselves. So we need someone to come in and be like, hey, that's not a good look, my man. Like, come on, bro. This is the reason why most athletes hire coaches. And in most cases, they hire multiple coaches because the coach can see something that the individual can, which is the reason that people come in and meet with me and counsel with me, because I can see the things that maybe they're missing and share it with them and then give them some solutions on how they can rectify the issue, right? Or I also point out the positives. This is the reason why you have to seek the advice of someone that will truly help you. An acquaintance is not the person that you want to seek advice from, all right? Don't do it. That's terrible advice. Or it's good advice not to seek advice from someone who you just met, an acquaintance. It's one thing to talk to someone and get ideas, but you should really bounce those ideas off of someone else that you can truly trust, right? You can say, hey, I heard this. What do you think about that? And then you can go from there. All right. But this also needs to be someone who is going to follow up with you. If you don't have a accountability partner or someone who's going to follow up with you, you're destined to go right back into the same corner that you came from with the blame of other people or causing other issues, right? It's important that this person follows up with you. All right. Number 3, develop a plan with your wife and stick to it. Look, this is a two-part thing. The first part is develop a plan with your wife. Now, going back to number two, if you get the advice from someone like myself or from a family friend, your father, any other person that is speaking into your life, right, and giving you true advice that you can apply, now it's time to develop a plan. Yes, you have to develop a plan. I had an episode about this. It's important to develop a plan because if you don't have a plan, then you don't know what you are trying to accomplish. But if you develop a plan and you say, okay, I'm going to do all of these things, hopefully leading me to this end state. You do those things, and if it leads you to that end state, hooray, you did it, successful. But if you do those things and it doesn't get you to that end state, then womp, womp, womp. Let's readjust the plan, okay? Readjust the plan if it doesn't get you to the end state, so that way you can get to the end state. You have the goal in mind. And let me, this isn't necessarily in my notes, but let me be clear. Your goals don't have to be these astronomically large goals. I think that it's important to set goals that stretch you, but don't overstretch yourself. All right. Don't overstretch yourself. What does overstretching look like? If you know that you don't do very well with having long conversations, don't say, hey, I'm going to put on the calendar that my wife and I sit down and have a conversation for an hour. And you know you don't do well with that, right? Maybe you got a good 15 minutes of conversation in you. So how do you stretch yourself? Go to 20 minutes. Say, hey, we're going to set up 20 minutes. Or if you really want to stretch yourself, say, we're going to sit down for 30 minutes and have a conversation. Now, that's just a very simple example, but you know the things that you are not very good at, right? And if you don't, then there's an assessment that you need to do so you can learn what you're not good at. And this isn't to beat you down, right? Because the assessment also shows you what you are good at. So you can capitalize on your strengths and identify your weaknesses so you can kind of build your weaknesses by capitalizing on your strengths. Really cool way of assessing yourself and moving forward. Now, develop the plan with your wife. We got to get back to that. Don't overstretch yourself when you develop your plan. Make your goal something that you can achieve, but you have to go out of your comfort zone, because the only way that we grow is when we step out of our comfort zone. You don't get big and strong by lifting 1 pound weights, right? You got to go get some heavier weights so you can put a little bit more stress on your muscles and really break them down, tear them up, and then they rebuild. It's okay if you struggle through the plan. If the plan is too easy, you probably didn't develop a plan that was going to be effective, all right? It should challenge you, but it should not destroy you. Do you hear what I'm saying? It should challenge you, but it should not destroy you. Stretch yourself, but don't overstretch. And then the last one is stick to it, right? Or not the last one. The last part to number 3 is you got to stick to your plan. All too many times I coach husbands that develop plans and they get halfway through, it doesn't work. And they're like, see, the plan doesn't work. I'm giving up. And instead of readjusting, they just give up, right? So the best way that I can explain this is you're in whatever competitive sport you like. I'm going to use basketball because that's the sport that I played growing up. You get to halftime. We had a plan. And at halftime, we're down by 30 points. So the plan obviously is not working, right? We're getting outplayed. To be down by 30 points. And in the halftime locker room, while we're sitting there reevaluating the plan, the team is like, oh, well, we lost the game. Well, yeah, you're going to show up on that second half and you're going to play like you lost the game. But there's still a whole nother half left to play. See, we give up on ourselves too much or too fast because the plan that we originally made didn't work. And we don't know how to readjust to make a plan that gets us a little bit closer to being on the right track. Don't give up on yourself before your final plan is in play. All right, readjust the plan. So again, going back to the making a 1 hour plan to sit down and talk to your wife. So you make the plan, and let's say that you can actually do 1 hour of conversation. You make the plan and you say, every day we're going to have conversation time 1 hour a day. And you come back 2 weeks later and you're like, we're not actually having conversations that go for an hour. We're having conversations that are 5 minutes and they usually end up in some sort of argument or whatever. Well, readjust the plan. Don't shoot for an hour. Shoot for 15 minutes. And then make a more deliberate plan of what it is that you're going to discuss during these conversations. There's a ton of fun games that you can have as a conversation with your wife. You can look up these things on Google and you can say, hey, you know what? Let's play a silly game. What paint colors would you choose and why? And then let your wife talk. It is amazing at how easy it is to start a conversation and to continue on with a conversation. Moral of the story, make a plan and stick with it. Readjust the plan, but don't give up on it. You have to stick with it. Even when it doesn't work, go back to the plan and readjust it and then keep on moving. Okay? And then number 4, be patient with the progress. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. Most of your issues in your marriage probably did not happen overnight. If they did, okay, you got me. But I would be willing to bet that they didn't. They happened over time. And the problem is, you can develop an issue a lot faster than you can solve an issue in most cases. There's some issues that you can solve pretty quick, but the ones that really impact our marriages, you could cause the issue in a week you have an affair. That could happen literally in 10, 20, 30 minutes, whatever it is, right? We'll say a day just to be fair. But that could have an impact in your marriage forever. You see what I'm saying? There are things that you just have to be patient with, and you're not always going to see the progress. But let me give you some encouragement. If you show up and you put in the work, right, it doesn't return void. If you put in genuine work, genuine effort, you may not see what's happening, but you're slowly building back that trust. If we're going to go with the affair incident, slowly building back that trust. And hopefully somewhere in your plan, there's a way of ensuring or reassuring your wife that whatever happened won't ever happen again. But then how do you show her that you love her and, that you are truly changing from the way that you are acting to being a loving, genuinely loving husband. All right. This is why it's so important, right? To find ways of loving your wife every single day. This is where that consistently successful people are responsible. That's the first half of that quote that I shared with you. If you want to be consistently successful, you have to show up consistently doing the things that are resonating with your wife. And just because you do it one day doesn't mean that all the problems are solved. Hooray, move on. No, no, that's not how it works. Okay. Especially when her emotions are deeply hurt or her feelings and she's extremely emotional about it. It can take years, but you have to be patient and wait for the progress. Now, if you don't see progress in a reasonable amount of time based off of the circumstance, right? And every circumstance is going to be different, so I can't give a really general answer to this, but I will do my best to try and give a general response to this. If you run into an issue where you're not seeing progress, let's say in a month for something that you believe you should have seen progress at least in a month, then this is where you have to reevaluate the plan and then talk about it with your wife to get her feedback. You have to solicit the feedback from your wife, because I get it. If the progress isn't coming and you're like, okay, is the thing that I'm doing, is this plan even working because I'm not seeing the progress? Well, that's where you have to sit down and talk to your wife. But before you do that, you should probably do a gut check and say, okay, am I actually following the plan that we developed? Because if I'm not following the plan, then that's probably where your problem is, right? That's why you have to stick to the plan. You see how this works? But if you are sticking to the plan and you're not seeing the progress, sit down with your wife, say, hey, honey, what's up? This is the plan and this is what I'm doing. Is there something more that I should be doing, or what's going on? And you may find that she just says, I'm not ready to move on. And that's a conversation for another day. But at least you know that the thing that you are doing in the plan is working. Now, if your wife does respond with, I'm just not ready to move on, this is where that responsibility comes in. You don't cast blame. You accept the fact that she's not ready to move on because whatever the thing is hurt her, or it's just something that's so ingrained in her that it's hard to get rid of something that scars you or is a part of you for so long. All right. It's hard to do that. So be respectful to that and ask her the question. So how can I help you move on? But not in the context of, I want to hurry you along. It's more in the context of, okay, I hear what you're saying. I care about you. What is it that you need me to do? Or what is it that I can do that will make this a little bit better? Because then maybe that'll give you some insight to how you can readjust the plan so that way you can start to get to the progress. But again, be patient with the progress. So again, contact me, marriagedrills.com, or visit marriagedrills.com, and just take a look on the site. There's a blog. There's going to be more information. I'm slowly building the site, but also email me at chris@marriagedrills.com or husbandcoach2020@gmail.com if you have specific questions or you just want to hear more, or you want to set up a one-on-one. All right. So until the next time, I want you guys to find a way to love your wife every day.